rush 4. Plenty of time for John. Now squeezes, steps up in the pocket. LA can run inside the 10. Head first. He dives off the 5-yard line.
65 horsepower trap. That might pop wide open, Rats. Get this there! Is that there, Rats? Oh, nice going, baby. Yes, sir, Rats.
High snap. It's no good. The Chargers go in.
Here comes the rush. He sidesteps. Can he throw? He can't. The ball flipped forward is loose. A wild scramble. 2 seconds on the clock. Casper grabbing the ball. It is ruled a fumble. Casper is recovered in the end zone. The Oakland Raiders have scored on the most seedy.
Hello and happy Wednesday and welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. That's the Fonz right there. And
It is not the Fonz.
Oh, it's close enough.
It is. What is it? Cool Jesus or there? It's something Jesus.
Bro Jesus. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll look it up. I'll literally while you guys are doing this, I'll look it up.
Perfect. So we're gonna kick off the Wild Wild West podcast tonight with all four joining in. Coach, good to see you again.
Appreciate you. How's everybody going? How's everybody doing?
So, as we are now back to full strength here on the Wild Wild West podcast, we have Alex to my right, Coach and Captain down just below here. Gentlemen, how are we all doing? Alex?
I suppose fine. I watch Sunday, so we've gotten past that. We're at the midpoint of the week, so it's on to the next one. But
it's on
things could have been better.
On to whoever the fuck we play next. It's on to whoever we play next.
We're on to Cincinnati.
There you go. Exactly. You did catch it, thank God. I was wondering.
I say that all the time, so
yeah.
Perfect. And Coach, how are things with you?
Well, I mean, things could be better. Obviously, had better days, rough 2 weeks, but I'm here. It's just sad and sad times for Chargers fans as well. So I mean, it's a real somber week for the AFC West, to be honest. But I would definitely say, I appreciate everybody. My compadres here for reaching out and holding me down and sending your thoughts and your prayers for during my time of grief, and as well as everybody that's reached out to me on social media. Bo Bros, all three of them were looking out and being very supportive. My Bo fam, my compadres, Rob, DZ, SoCal. I'm missing somebody. BC, Brian Callahan, my homies on Twitter. Appreciate everybody that's been looking out for me, DMing me, looking out for me, as well as everybody else in the AFC West, man, for this podcast, man. I appreciate everybody that's been definitely giving me my time, but being supportive and looking out for me and giving me your thoughts and prayers. So I appreciate everybody that's been looking out for me in my time of need. And so, man, we're here, though. So let's talk some football.
Fantastic.
It's Buddy Jesus. Buddy Jesus. It's not the fuck.
We're going backwards. Okay.
Hey.
All right.
Yeah,
hey.
We're back.
I had to catch Coach up. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Perfect. So maybe we'll start with some of the recaps, everybody. Alex, how about we start with you?
Yeah, I bet you would like that, wouldn't you?
I very much would.
Why?
Well, because at the end of the day, what kept you guys in it to lose it was someone yapping.
That's not true. You can hang that on that, but that is not accurate at all.
So what?
Bottom line, man. Let me put it black and white for you. If they just had a kicker, they win. Because they left 7 points off the scoreboard by just not making freaking kicks, and then do a fake field goal because they weren't confident in their kicker. So for as bad as they played, they still should have won the game. The Chris Jones thing at the end, like I tweeted at you, was, the cherry on top of everything. Was that a egregious enough action to warrant that call? Not in my opinion, but it is a very subjective thing that any ref can do. But that was not the sole reason they lost. That definitely put a damper on the whole narrative of the game. But, really they, in my opinion, I think played down to the Colts because they thought it was an easy win, and they just look like they do at least once every year, where they just don't look like the same Chiefs team that's, they just didn't seem like they had a clear game plan in place and were actively trying to execute it. It was like, we're KC, these are the Colts who haven't won a game yet. This should be easy. And it was very much a trap game, in my opinion.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. It's unfortunate because the defense actually played really well. Given, they held Jonathan Taylor down. They didn't give up a whole lot on rushing. It's sort of like the two Bengals games last year. It came down to just poor execution on the offense, pretty bad time of possession. And then it was like once they got into their, oh crap mindset, kind of stopped going away from the game plan and seemed to just, try to sling it around and kind of killed drives and got the defense back on the field. But, end of the day, the biggest component to them losing was special teams. They were the better team.
But you didn't say it. That's what Ed was saying.
But end of the day, the loss came down to special teams. They didn't have their kicker, missed those kicks, muffed a punt, very first drive. So Colts immediately got it in the red zone. It's exactly like what Big E Broncos saying. It wasn't Chris Jones. It wasn't what happened at the end. It was kind of the culmination of not having a kicker and just not effectuating what they need to do on special teams. And that really hurt it at the end of the day.
Well, I kind of agree that unless there's parameters given to players, and I don't know that there actually is at the NFL level in terms of what's truly accepted and what's not, I actually agree with what I heard. I think it's actually a Canadian broadcast, but nonetheless, after the game here on my side of the border.
It was a good broadcast, eh?
He's a former pro that's actually Canadian, that's moved back after his professional career. And he does the post-game recap for like the entire week at the end of Sunday Night Football. He had some really interesting things. He said, this is what we all need to understand, is that the refs hear all sorts of stuff. And to say that there is not colorful language used on a football field in a full contact sport like that is underselling what actually happens. And he says, so the one thing that you need to understand and realize is that the ref has been hearing jawing all game, because there's a lot of yapping on both sides of the, I don't care who you are.
As a former offensive lineman, I can tell you that it happens pre-snap, during the snap, after the snap, every play you're out there. So,
yeah, exactly.
That was at small-time college football level. I can only imagine that it's more, in the professional sense.
Listen,
but, in my opinion, that's part of the game. Unless it's something totally outrageous, that's a component of the game.
I felt like it had to be egregious because the little bit that they catch on camera, inadvertently, obviously, they don't want to catch any of it. Because even in the Chargers game, I saw a guy flip the double bird on camera. There's nothing they could do. Like the guy ran towards the sideline and he ran into the little fan section, and the guy was ready with the double bird right as soon as he hit. So the camera couldn't even do anything about it. But we're talking a small, minute bit of what they catch is being said. When I when I say as a former linebacker, what gets said in a game it would blow your mind.
It stays on the field.
Exactly. It would blow your mind about some things that get said.
And that's exactly it. I agree. And so what the guy was saying in the post game is, you have to imagine all of the stuff that the refs have heard all game, and they didn't call a similar call to that until Chris Jones said what he said in close earshot
and right
of the
in
ref.
front of the ref. Like there were two
Right in
refs
front of
on
the
each
ref.
side, and then it was Matt Ryan and him. I mean, you asking for it. He was asking
Right
for
in front
it.
of the ref.
Chris Jones is a talker too. He likes to chirp it up. But in my opinion, I mean, I understand throwing the flag, like when you hit someone, stand over them, stuff like that. But like, to me, especially being someone who played football, two players jarring for a second as they're both walking separate ways, is not rises to the level of that type of penalty. Especially,
that all depends. If Matt Ryan was being chirpy but at least respectful,
feels like Phillip Rivers just
like Phillip Rivers saying, "Hey, dude, gee golly willikers, man."
Gee golly willikers.
I can see golly willikers.
I can too.
Yeah,
So,
I'm sure he used it.
So I mean, basically, if you have Phillip Rivers giving you the "Leave It to Beaver" insults, and then you have Chris Jones that is going potentially down to the gutter, the ref is going to look at those two things and say they're not on even playing fields, and you have no idea what Jones actually said.
No.
Neither do I, but what I
love to know. Honestly, I really want to know what he said. I do.
Well, there's an internet meme after the Raiders 49ers game with Garoppolo coming off the field, and there is only a handful of things that he could have said after the play call didn't end up well. None of them are particularly kind towards the head coach.
Mm-hmm.
So he was also the play caller. So I think that's really interesting. My point is all sorts of stuff is said on a football field, and the ref was right there and heard every word that both of them said to each other. Ryan did not have an offsetting penalty, and there's no way that the ref did not hear what Ryan said if he heard what Jones said.
Fair.
So I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that is exactly what it is. And so you have to imagine that Chris Jones may have taken it to, perhaps a level that was inappropriate for the football field.
And let's be honest here. The Chiefs didn't play to the normal caliber level that they normally play against most teams. Offensively, they didn't look good. They'll just be honest with you. They didn't look good. They literally should have won the game about these 14 to 17 points. They just didn't look good throughout the game. I mean, yes, Amendola, cost you the game with his kicking, but it shouldn't have came to that. Honest and true. How porous the Colts have been playing the first 2 weeks, this should have been a walk-off. The line was ridiculous in the game when it started. And they end up coming down to
they outperformed the Colts in offensive, in pretty much all offensive stat categories. It's so I mean, for as bad as they looked, they were still better offensively.
True.
That's why I kind of hang my hat on the kicking woes with it, because like they went for a fake field goal on like 4th and 6 or something stupid after the kicker missed a PAT. If you have your everyday kicker in there, you don't make a choice like that. So you walk away from that scenario alone with 3 points. You have your 7 from a touchdown, and who knows if you don't have to plan around stuff like that, that changes the whole scheme of the game. But I mean, they definitely didn't look like the Chiefs. They haven't looked like the offensive juggernaut that was week 1. Since
they did real well week 1.
Yeah, that was the Cardinals, though. The cover 3 Cardinals.
Hey.
Yeah.
So I do want to be mindful just of the fact that a hurricane is rolling through Florida at the moment. Just having some fun, doing its thing, and we might lose one of the 4 of us depending on circumstances. I'd love to get Captain's take on the Raiders game just while we still have him on air with us.
Well, as I was going from the parking lot,
yeah.
Okay, well, first off, again, thanks for that. Yes, Hurricane Ian is hitting my area right now. Lots of rain and wind. But I'm here, dudes. I got Buddy Jesus all ready to go. Not the Fonz. Not the
Bro
Fonz.
Jesus.
No, actually, I looked it up. It's Buddy Christ, Buddy Jesus. I looked it up. what I would like to say is that, and I'm going to go with Ed on, sometimes the better team did win. No, they didn't. And I'm going to piss Coach off because the Chargers could be 0-3 at this point and instead of us. Okay. And I would say, okay, let me quantify. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, got it. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, got it. But the Raiders, again, did not play a full game of football. The first half, they got run over score-wise, not even run over by Henry because Henry only had 85 yards the entire game. But they got run over score-wise, and they didn't score when they needed to. And Darren Waller needs to catch those effing, and I didn't say it, effing touchdowns when they're in his hands, effing first downs when they're in their hands, and he shan't, being very, high tier here, when you shan't do that.
Look at this highfalutin Raiders fan.
Highfalutin, thank you. I like that. He shan't cause a freaking interception when the ball is in his hands. He shan't do that. Okay? So I'm not going to lay it all on Waller, but if you do like the 7 points, it's ends of us or candy nuts. We'd all have.
I heard this. Someone was saying this earlier this week, and I made a mental note to bring this up because I knew this it would play. It would play. You beat me to it, Coach.
Well, you know what? I can honestly say, yeah, we're 0-3, and I'm getting a lot of texts right now. Pardon me. Let me turn the volume up.
Yes. Yeah, I support that, Mike. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Waller for Sovereign. Do it.
Straight
Who
up.
says
No. That's my guy.
First round pick
Who
for
says
Sovereign.
no? Who says no?
Anyway, first off, no, but he needs to, if your guy is getting paid bags, he has to perform. Okay. And he hasn't performed. And I can honestly say, I really think that, I don't know how many points the Chargers have lost by in their 2 losses, but the Raiders have lost by a total, I think, of 12 points. A little bit here, a little bit there, and we're 2-1 at worst. 2-1 at worst, because again, they gave away the Cardinal game. They could have won either of the other games that they were in. 2-1 is what we should be, but you are what your record says you are. I'm not saying anything of that. Yeah, we're the best 0-3. I think we're the only 0-3.
You're the only 0-3. Yeah. No, they're the only ones.
Yeah, I think we're the only 0-3 team in the NFL, and that's why people are doing the memes of why Bill Belichick didn't name an offensive coordinator before the season because he knew McDaniel would be back in about 7 weeks or so. With that, and I saw that, and I'm like, that makes sense. That makes sense. But
we'll leave the light on for you.
Yeah, that's it. Just like Best Western or Motel 6, whatever.
Yeah.
So you're saying is Belichick didn't clear out his office?
No,
Probably
he probably left it intact.
All the stuff's probably still there.
Yeah, he probably left it intact. But the thing is that the Raiders have played better than the Chargers overall. Aside from the letdown with the Cardinals, I think they played better than the Chargers have overall.
That's the question. That's the question. There are other teams in this division, and some of them have offensive woes outside of the Chargers. Why are the Chargers your budding example?
No. Only because you are the closest team to us that we've already played. That's the quantifier because we play the Broncos this week. And I think that we played better than y'all, and we are just 0-3, and you're 1-2. That's the Coach. I love you, brother. I wasn't just directed at you because I missed you last week, and I needed to pile on zings. That's not it, brother. That's not it.
I think that
you might think it is, but it is not. I just think that the Raiders are better than their record, but they're 0-3. If they go 0-4, and 0-5.
Hit the pitchfork.
That bye week is looking like a very opportune time for somebody to be shit canned But the only thing is once you do that,
I love that saying, by the way. I love that saying, by the way. That makes me laugh.
what shit can?
Yes, that's hilarious to me.
But it's if the team, and there's conjecture that McDaniels doesn't have the locker room, and it's surprising, but that's what it is. They had a meeting between McDaniels and Mark Davis was not going over what are the specials at PF Chang's and Hooters that week. Okay, that was not what was on the agenda. So what's going on? I don't know. I know Bishop is saying that it's around Vegas that he loses this week or next week. He's gone. So we'll see.
You think they really do that? That seems so drastic.
Right.
I know.
He gave Gruden a way longer, I guess you could say, hook than he did McDaniels. No.
Right,
so here's the question: Is that a McDaniels firing that you're predicting, or do you think that whichever side of the ball is showing out the worst will
DC
be
firing.
like for example, your defense was looking a lot better last year, and you've added pieces. You haven't really lost a ton per se, with the exception of one guy that you traded, really. So
that one guy though is a vital cog when you throw Ngakwe's number against what Chandler Jones is, because he's still on a milk carton. He's still on a milk carton because we have yet to see Chandler Jones show up.
Yeah, because he's a fraud. You could go after him for some.
But that's exactly my point. Like that's exactly my point, Captain. Is when I look at the Raiders and what you guys look at.
Y'all wrong, Mundungus. It's why then the tick ALL. Dude, if you're gonna be
nitpicky.
Captain demands that if you're going to insult the Raiders, that you do it grammatically correct.
You do it grammatically
punctuation, sir.
Yes,
proper punctuation, sir.
Was the Titans game? Was that a home game for the Raiders or no?
So what I just heard is Captain is totally cool with the insults, but at least use punctuation correctly.
You gotta use punctuation correctly. It's a peeve of mine. It is. And by the way, when you have these conversations where you're saying you're okay, it's YOU apostrophe RE. It's not YOUR.
Oh man. If you're going to insult me, use proper grammar. That's all he's saying.
So that's just someone spoken good. That's all, Captain.
Yeah.
I thought you picked that one up too. Yeah, there you go. So, my point being is, a lot of your challenges seem to be coming from perhaps people being used incorrectly in your scheme. More importantly, not fitting your scheme, and then as a result, they're not able to show out as well as they have otherwise been able to in years past. So, do you not think that rather than McDaniels being fired, do you not think he'll be under pressure to fire the DC, and perhaps they're already looking at a replacement?
I'm not sure. I'm just, like I said, I've honestly, and I'm not going to use this as an excuse, but between going to games and going to work and going to games and going to work and to travel, and with the hurricane actually gave me kind of a bit of a respite this week because I got sent home to do work that I normally don't do on a computer. There you go, Mundungus. Y'all, get that crap right. Yeah. Hey, Buddy Jesus has got you, man.
Victory for the Raiders. We got him.
But the thing is that I don't know if what's going on. Like I said, the conjecture is that obviously Mark is pissed. We have a better team than 0-3, and Gruden was 0-3 and turned it around, but Gruden didn't have a playoff team when we came into Oakland. Okay. And yes, I looked up the stats. I know that, Bill Belichick was horrible in his first stint with the Browns, and then got the Jets job for about 15 minutes, and then went on to New England. But no,
he just had a cup of coffee in New York on his way to Boston. There, right?
That's what I said. He had it for about 50. Actually, technically, it was one day.
Yeah,
he was given the Jets job for one day, and then they had a press conference the next day and said, "No."
Actually, I believe he was on a hot seat till he got Tom Brady. Now, if I'm remembering correctly,
sorry,
there was rumbles about Belichick before Tom Brady got there. It was,
Well,
you know,
it was-
whether
well,
he was doing
he-
a good job or not.
Well, the thing is that if you don't go Mo Lewis breaking Bledsoe's whatever and giving he who shall not be named, because I still can't stand the mofo, to get out of that season, okay? Mo Lewis is the impetus for he who shall not be named to come in there, and then of course we have the rule job, you know, the tough.
Oh,
rule.
now I get it. Now, like,
Job.
why you got a problem with him? But now I understand. Yeah,
Why do I have a problem with him? We don't have enough time on this program, but I will do the quick version. When he goes to the podium after that game with a smile on his face and lies his ass off saying, and then I can't even say it because I have to keep a smile on his face. Yeah, I knew it was an incomplete pass. Yes, I knew. He was lying his ass off.
Oh, I was going to call that the Botox smile.
Yeah.
Either one works. If you would have went to the podium and just even kind of deflected the question, you know, deferred and didn't say, I know we got one over on him. I lost respect from him the day of the game after that press conference. I said, this is going to be the bane. I didn't say it.
No, I love the antics though. That was hilarious.
Yeah. I've hated him ever since. I've hated him ever since because he lied his ass off on a press conference.
There's a whole 30 for 30 on that game.
He tweeted or put on Instagram.
I think he actually admitted that
he did. He said it might have been a fumble. Yeah, I remember
that.
Yeah,
I know.
7 rings later.
You're right. Right.
Yeah.
Now that I have a few to spare, I can make a comment like that so that no one's going to question me, right?
Yeah.
Coach, over to you, and I'll cover the Broncos last here. Obviously, a disappointing game for the Chargers, to be kind.
Jacksonville's good.
What were your thoughts?
Well, I mean, honestly, you know, Alex, now you say that, I'm actually giving Jacksonville a lot of respect. They're definitely playing good football right now. I give Doug Peterson a lot of credit too. They're not the same pushover team that you expect in the last 3 or 4 years. In all honesty, their defense is better than I thought. I give credit to that. Their front seven is really good. Devin Lloyd, ladies and gentlemen, is a freaking animal.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's unfair that they got him with Walker.
So you did say animal, right?
Right. Huh?
You did say manimal, right?
He's beast.
A mammal.
He's a beast. Listen, you know, they got to steal like him and Trayvon Walker on the same team, the same draft.
With Josh Allen,
right. That's a steal. That's a steal. So I give credit to Jacksonville, but the Chargers played an uninspiring game. In all honesty, I think they were kind of on nervous pins and needles because they just didn't know what to think about Justin's injury. I mean, he was widely speculated that Chase Daniels was going to start the game even up to pregame. So, you know, and I'll be honest with you, if I'm playing or a fan, an analyst, anybody that supports the Chargers, when Chase Daniels starter, I would be nervous too. So I think they kind of went into that game with a nervous sense that they were going to have to play a different style of football and have to win ugly with Chase Daniels being a starter. And then lo and behold, a few minutes before kickoff, Justin's throwing on the sideline, he's ready to go. So, you know, just to have to pivot your mindset when you figure, you know, the uncertainty all week with Chase being the starter, air quote, and not sure if Justin can play or not. Corey Linsley being out, that was a big part of it from a line perspective. And the biggest, most glaring thing that people aren't really focusing on, and something I want to bring up, is the fact that Justin misses Keenan Allen. You know, he misses Keenan Allen. He really does. It shows. Now, I'm not going to let Joe Lombardi off the hook about not running the ball. When you have 4 running backs on your freaking roster, like you went out and got an extra running back after the cut down for the express purpose of wanting to be fluid in the run game, and you haven't even tried, in a sense. So
we got 5 and we only use them 2.
Yeah, I'm like, why do you
have
Eckler
been, man?
Exactly.
What he did last year, and then I'm so many fantasy owners are so pissed.
I'm baffled. I really am. I mean, and I was actually fighting to get him in fantasy. And fantasy, and I can land him in any draft, and I'm like, I guess I'm okay. You know, end up with Saquon versus him, and Saquon's killing right now.
Yeah.
But you know, regardless of that, like I said, he missed Keenan Allen, and I think every quarterback that's on the elite tier right now has a number one receiver, and when that number one receiver's not on the field, it shows. And I think that's the biggest, most glaring thing, to not have that safety valve and a guy that can get open under any circumstance, practically against any corner. When you have that versus not having that, that shows, and it shows in glaring fashion.
Didn't they pay Mike Williams to kind of do the same thing?
Well, I mean, let's be honest. Let's look at Mike Williams' skill set. He's a 50-50 possession, you know, go up and get it kind of guy versus being that, you know, perennial route runner. You know, it's a stark difference between, you know, Brandon Marshall versus, you know, Chad Johnson.
Larry Fitzgerald.
Larry Fitzgerald when it comes down to route running and getting open.
Yeah.
You know, it's a stark difference. And I think that's a fair comparison. So Keenan Allen not being on the field is big. Not running the ball is even bigger than that. Now, and then losing Rashawn Slater midway through the game, that didn't help any matter. So, you know, it just Bosa in the first quarter. Yeah, right. Guyton wouldn't to the end of the game, though. Guyton got hurt at the last play of the game.
He's out for the year now, though.
Exactly. So just a multitude of injuries.
Yeah.
You know, there's the plaguing us yet again for another season. And, you know, I didn't get a chance to read as much social media as I normally do in this time, but I read a little bit. And, you know, we go from the skies falling to kind of like Alex said at the top of the show, where, you know, you get over it about midweek and then, you know, it gets on to the next game. You know, so you know, we kind of understand what the O-line is going to look like going forward. I'm happy that they went ahead and put Jamari Salyer out there at tackle versus Storm Norton, because Storm Norton is the swinging gate when it comes down to pass protection. So that's promising. Hopefully we get Keenan back. I'm still a little worried about Justin, because no matter what, you know, at this point it's going to be for him, it's going to be uncomfortable all season. And it's going to be a situation where he's going to be inaccurate in certain spaces, you know, because just the injury is unpredictable. Like one play, I've heard several quarterbacks say they've had it.
Yeah,
the injury in the past.
Hasselbeck talked about it.
Yeah,
and,
I heard him.
It was the biggest regret of his
talked
career.
about it too, because he had it in Dallas.
That Hasselbeck specifically said it was the biggest regret of my career to take the shot and keep playing than
Right.
to get out. And I was like, dang, that's
right. So, you know, and again, you know, but what do? Like you said, because our backup situation is horrible at this moment. So you looking at it from a perspective like, you know, he'll tough it out and give us a shot versus him sitting out and we have no shot in a sense. So, you know, it's a double-edged sword. You know, you run the risk either way of cutting yourself. So I guess you can say, you know, from a large space, you know, it's going to be one play he could be inaccurate, one play he could be on the money. Like that frozen rope he threw to Guyton down the middle of the field towards the end of the game was amazing, being that he has that type of injury. You know, contorting his body. You know, because sometimes injury hurts you in a play, and sometimes it's fine. So you know, you just kind of manage it. So hopefully that with this shifting around the O-line and Lindsey coming back, hopefully we can finally get back to maybe running the ball and become a more balanced offense that will take the pressure off Herbert and having him have to throw the ball 40, 50 times a game. And that will lean to a better balanced offense and more points on the board. So that subsequently will leave our offense on the field, defense on that play as many snaps, because the time of possession for this game was almost 2-1. In the sense, Jags had the ball, I want to say, at one point they had like 39 minutes. We had like 15.
It was insane, the time of possession.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
And it blows my mind too that the Chargers only ran the ball. You know, I obviously get some of the way the game plays out indicates, you know, how many times you have to run and pass, but like for going into a game with your star QB somewhat injured, I would have anticipated they would start off just
that's what I thought,
ramming it down their throats, and only ran it 12 times the whole game.
The whole game. Like I don't even care, because they say, well, you know, you want to outsmart the defensive coordinator stance. He probably knows what your game plan is going to be, so he's going to gear for that. I don't care. Go out there and just man on man, and let's do it. Because again, you don't want to have Justin throwing the ball at a high clip.
Yeah,
right.
And then like
at least wear him out.
Running,
exactly.
Then you get them to play the run, and you open up stuff more.
Exactly.
Like,
but you call a play action pass. Call a play action pass the first snap of the game. I'm like, there was no run to set that up. Like you run to set up the play action pass.
Yeah.
You don't call the play action pass thinking that you're gonna, you know, get a free open man for his possession. It was bad. It was nerve wracking. So, you know. But overall, man, I just hope that this is a wake up call for the coaching staff and the players to realize that, you know, you got to win any way you can, you know, and you know, getting people healthy is probably that we can get healthy at this point. It's going to be the biggest thing. and getting pressure. Because to be honest with you, and this is me being honest and critical, outside of game one, I haven't seen Khalil Mack either. So that's another problem that we have too. For him not to be as effective as he was game one to game 2 and 3.
Mack had a couple plays in the early mid part of that game.
Yeah, but he was quite solid in the Chiefs game. Though. He was, exactly, no sacks. So he had 3.5. He had 3.5 in the first game. Then he had 4.5, and he has 4.5 now. So, that kind of gives you the idea where he's at. So
I feel like Jacksonville kind of played it similar to KC and like very quick.
Yes,
like getting the ball. Like there wasn't a whole lot of deep progressions, at least early on,
right?
To negate the fact that Bosa and Mack are on the edges there.
Yeah, and I'm very critical with the defensive coordinator and Stanley we're doing defensively against the Jaguars, especially because I understand J.C. Jackson was out, but they were giving the receivers for Jacksonville a lot of respect. They were playing off coverage a lot, which allowed for them to check the quick passes, quick speed outs, quick hitches, and things of that nature, getting the ball out. So you can't have a
crazy because it's not like Jacksonville has a Tyreek Hill or someone.
Exactly. So why were you giving them that much respect? I just didn't get it. And we were misaligned a few times, like that one big run that what's the guy's name? James Robinson had. We were completely misaligned. Third and 3, we were completely misaligned on the strong side, and they got a first down where we could have stopped them. And I'm like, they're lining up in the pass rush set when they could literally run the ball. It's only 3 yards. I mean, it's not unheard of that you could run the ball on 3rd and 3. So why were you completely and utterly misaligned on that play? So
3rd and 3 is a running play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So why are you completely misaligned on the front? You have an overload weak versus overload strong, and they literally ran it. You saw Trevor Lawrence check the inside zone, and they ran the ball for 5 yards. So that's
Robinson's a beast, though. Real glad I drafted that dude in the 10th round.
10th round. You still, that's a steal. Yeah. So overall, I think bad play calling, uncertainty of the quarterback position. Just total, complete, utter bad execution and leaving your defense. I don't care how good your defense is. You leave them on the field too long, they're going to give up points. So that's what happened.
Well, and especially if the other team is in fact running the ball and wearing down some of the interior defensive linemen and stuff,
Correct.
Because you have to look at how the other team is playing against you as well. So if you're not holding up as well as against the run, then another option for you is to try to run the ball yourself to draw out those offensive plays to keep the other offense off the team and give those defensive linemen some needed rest, actually, in that case, in order to recoup and recover, because, it's a long game and it's a long season. So you want to make sure that those guys, remain healthy and whatnot there. Speaking of which, I think that's a perfect segue for the Chargers here in particular, because sadly it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy in some respects for the Chargers over the years. You again had injuries plague you guys from this game, and I think it would be a mistake to not bring them up in the fact that Bosa found the bench again for I don't know how many seasons in a row, which should literally shock nobody. And you also had Rashawn Slater, who, if I saw the news correctly, I did tweet back. I think it was his father actually that tweeted out that I responded to. And by the way, he actually did like my tweet as a Broncos fan, because despite the fact that I am a Broncos fan, I actually wanted the Broncos to draft him in the draft. And so I actually think I think Rashawn Slater, I think very, very highly of him. He is that guy in the NFL. And
yes.
He is that guy.
Perennial All-Pro in the making.
Yeah. No, like he is up there.
No, yeah, he's
he is. I'm sorry. I don't care. He is that good. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Right.
No, I do.
Imagine if the Raiders actually got a tackle that draft. Oh yeah, never mind.
Yeah. Oh, you got a tackle. How's he doing?
Again, imagine if.
He turned him to a guard.
And now it's a bear.
Tackle turned into a guard that turned into a bear.
A bear. Yeah, there you go.
and is out with a non-football related injury. I don't know. Maybe he got a case of the clap. I'm just saying.
Wow.
Well, if it's in Chicago, it might have got shot. I'm just saying.
See, I just had venereal disease, man. I wasn't going.
Hey, I lived in Chicago for a year. You hear that.
I was going to say that's a low blow, but it's also not necessarily.
I went to a White Sox
untruthful.
game, and in the 9 innings I was there, heard several rings of gunshots right around it. And people were like, "Don't go down this way." I was like, "Okay."
Remember Captain Jack, Great Lakes Naval Hospital born. Okay. Great Lakes Naval Hospital born.
Fun fact of the day, huh?
Fun facts of the day. So I got you beat by at least 20 something years.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe 30, maybe 40. I don't know how old you are.
Who you talking to?
You schmuck.
You're the youngest of the group.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, guys, I do want to jump into the Broncos game because we have a whole week to cover in the upcoming games. I did want to just bring this up as a fun fact with the Broncos defense, which is I'm actually surprised because it was one of my comments in the earlier part when we were discussing the offseason in the fact that when you lose Vic Fangio, who is easily seen as one of the sharpest defensive minds in the NFL, period, probably, I think he's within the top 2 or 3 at this point in the NFL. You expect that there would be a potential dip in defensive production when you lose someone like that. And instead, the Broncos have seemingly actually gotten better on the defensive side of the ball, which I don't think any Broncos fan, if you're being honest, expected. We were hoping we could maintain, I think is where, generally speaking, Broncos country was at. But we got better. I mean, we've averaged 12 points a game for our opponents, which is spectacular for any defense. I don't care who you are. And some of the offseason acquisitions have really turned out and helped in some of the key moments. And we are seeing with Evero, our defensive coordinator, a very similar feel to Fangio, which is we can allow a few plays to happen here and there, but we're not allowing you to put points on the board. That's kind of the mindset and the mantra. But even that, we've seen much better pressure from our DBs and much better interior pressure from our interior defensive linemen. Only a select few of them, though. There have been others that have kind of fallen by the wayside. But generally speaking, our defense has really done much, much better overall. That brings me to the Niners game. We saw some continuations of some of the issues that we had in previous games, although I do think some of the challenges that we had against the Niners had a lot to do with the fact that their defense is also legit. Yeah. They are no slouch. They are that good. And Wilson knows it. So I think he was intentionally trying to hold back because he wanted to not be the reason why they lost. And I think he was playing a little bit scared, which I think is a fair comment to make based on what you saw on tape. You also saw some poor throws, underthrows, and kind of some miscues, which I think were partially due to hesitation, where he was just wanting to be that extra, go the extra mile in terms of being cautious. I do hope that we will see a similar flow to the game that we saw against the Niners, because as much as the offense did not look great, when you actually look at the game and rewatch it, the offense put together a much better game flow than we had in games past, which was a huge concern for a lot of Broncos country. And also the national media was picking up on that as well. So hopefully we can keep offensive game flow and allow, a play early to allow a bigger play later in the game, which is kind of some of the things we started to see against the Niners. We also need to see our kicker start to kick those 50-plus yarders that he's easily capable of doing and not missing wide left or wide right. He's got a leg. I don't know if you guys watched the game or anything like that, but in terms of his leg strength, I mean, he's from 55, 56 yards out, and it's coming in like 3/4 of the way up the uprights.
Doesn't he have one of the longest field goals in
He does. McManus can kick. That's not.
No. He's, don't get me wrong. He's legit, right? He is that good. But The problem is that his 50 pluses, which is a lot of times those are the game savers that you need to have made because you have no other choice but to try and kick it. You really do need those accuracy levels to go up, especially at Mile High where the air is thinner. So you're going to have more opportunity to kick longer field goals and likely make them. So he needs to improve on that. It's a fact. So generally speaking, I felt in the Niners, we underutilized our tight ends. We were trying to leverage them more in blocking, and then we didn't allow them to break away for long passes. Saubert sadly did not have his second touchdown of the year.
You didn't get a second jersey, like a home and away?
No. This is look. Saubert did his thing, and proved me right. That's all that matters. And we will continue to see Saubert show out, I think, the rest of the year. I actually sadly think that, Captain, that against the Raiders, I think is going to be another game where you're going to have I think you're going to have another few Saubert sightings in terms of on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, but I don't know you a friggin' jersey. Alex does.
Yeah, I know.
I was going to suggest a bet. If Saubert outperforms Waller, you gotta get Richie. Gotta get Richie something.
No, I ain't taking that bet because he'd win that the way the schmuck's been playing the last.
Whoa.
You got no faith in your squad?
Not hear the lead to my show. You know, yeah, friggin' Buddy Jesus on that one, man. True. Actually, Moreau has been playing better than Waller the last several games.
And Moreau is a much better comp in terms of comparable to Saubert.
Yes.
I've come on your show and said that more than once.
Yeah. I've seen
who's better though, Saubert or Moreau?
On my show, hint. Yeah, although no, you guys have been in the comment section. I will give you that. Yeah, I will give you that. You have been in the comment section.
But no,
Coach came on. Coach came on after the game and had such a wonderful piece. So I guess I'm just cracking on the schmuck who's young and it's like yeah, there you go. Make sure you point right there. Yeah, there you go. That guy. That guy. Yeah.
It's almost like y'all touching figures. It's funny. It's
like that one painting.
Yeah. Rich and lazy, huh, Mike?
Why don't you invite me?
Oh.
I did. Oh, here. You want an invitation?
Oh, no.
I would like a formal Cap invitation, so let's see it.
So
I'm gonna do this straight. I'm not gonna do it nastily. Sir, would it be possible for you to grace the presence of my show sometime? I'm even doing it in a snarly French accent to get the full benefit of how smarmy I can be. So I felt in your general direction if you don't come on my show.
Well, at least you didn't insult, because part of that quote for those who are not familiar with the latter part of what that came from, that was Monty Python. My favorite movie, actually, The Holy Grail.
So I threw it.
The last part of that is, was it your mother was a hamster and your father smelt of elderberries?
Elderberries. Yeah, you go. That's right.
Now go away before I taunt you a second time. And I can actually do the French accent. I'm just opting not to because, well, it was already done once, and then that's just copying, and that's just not cool. But
right.
So I really think that the Broncos game was a really interesting one. Carolyn, how are you? I really think that the Broncos game was an interesting one because we saw improvements in some respects, and we saw some continued woes on others. But I think by and large, what you're seeing from the Broncos overall, and this is going to get scary if it continues on an upward trajectory like this, is you're seeing slowly but surely the issues that plagued us in the very early part of the season get corrected. One issue at a time, at least what it looks like.
Down. That's for sure.
Pardon me?
I said the penalties are going down each week, it feels like.
Look, it's really hard to beat 13 or 14 in one game. Like that's a bar that might just be too high, except for the Cowboys to beat.
I still like that the Kansas City Royals and Seattle Mariners final score on the same night was higher than the Broncos and Niners game.
Yeah, Matthew, the short answer to that is just no. That would be harsh and outrageous for a head coach to be fired after 4 weeks in the season. I don't think it makes sense. Now, there may be some hot seats or even exoduses on the coaching staff, depending on what that game looks like, because the Raiders would have then played, I think, the entire division. No, or they haven't played KC yet. Right?
No, not KC yet.
Chargers.
Nope.
So
coming up though after next week.
So I think at the end of the day, when you look at the Raiders, they would have played two out of the three opponents, and they would have lost to both. And depending on how they look, I actually think that someone from the coaching staff, in terms of the side of the ball that doesn't look the best, could be fired
DC.
or could be let go. Probably the DC as an attempt to try to correct the season.
Actually, I think that the DC, with the efforts that the defense has been doing, the defense has played better than the offense has. Because
really,
now check it out. The Titans scored 24 points. You know, all those points were in the first half. They had 0 in the second half. Okay, they had the collapse of the second half against the Cardinals, but it's because the offense couldn't do anything, and they were 3 and out, and they got gassed. And even in the first game, like I said, the Chargers didn't do anything in the second half. The Raiders defense is playing better than the Raiders offense, and
where's your boy Devontae been at too?
Well, I think that's fair.
Hold up,
yeah.
Alex, did you see that meme that he was talking like he was in The Hangover? Like he was talking to his agent.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I saw a tweet.
That one.
Someone tweeted it was the Chiefs and someone are showing, starting to show that they need, that they're not the same without Tyreek. And someone commented and said, well, arguably the Raiders are making a case that it doesn't matter. Like they have an elite receiver.
Well,
but I
think that calls the card.
Overall, I think that despite the fact that the Broncos were the only team out of the division to win last week, I still think that the Broncos have a long way to go in order for us to truly be seen as that upper echelon competitor. But I am hopeful because I've seen small stepping stones of improvement and corrections on the mistakes that we've seen each and every week thus far. And frankly, given the fact that you're going through a career quarterback for 10 years in a single place he's not necessarily a Peyton Manning who comes with a system that you basically need to just kind of hand the reins over to. Russell Wilson is a guy that you kind of mold into fitting a similar system, and it's a matter of figuring out the ebbs and the flows. And I think that's what we're seeing now on the offensive side with Denver. And I think eventually Hackett and Wilson will quickly get into shorthands, and we'll start seeing some improvements on the offensive side.
Yeah, because you got to roll out more than 10 points, and if you want to compete in this division, let's be all being honest about ourselves. Because y'all are really one footstep on the line from Garoppolo of losing that game.
Yeah, that's the real MVP with the safety pick six.
With the new Orlovsky.
That was Mike Purcell. I don't know if anyone knew that. The D lineman with kind of the Samoan kind of hair there, with the long kind of curly-ish hair. That's Mike Purcell. Yours is straight though, right? But
hey, I got naturally curly hair, just like Frida in Peanut.
Boy,
I used to have a flow like that too, Cap.
Yeah,
yeah.
I actually did that.
So, just with regards to this question here, Broncos country existed long before Wilson ever came here. Wilson's thing was this whole "let's ride" business. That was his little, claim to fame when he came to Denver, and he kind of added that catchphrase. But no, Broncos country well predates Wilson. Frankly, it well predates Wilson ever even coming into the NFL.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
I was actually genuinely curious as well. I think he just kind of is more abrasive about it, so it seems like it's his.
Let's ride.
So let me ask you this question, Rich, real quick. Like, do you think that that Hackett hiring a game management coordinator after week 1 was they were highly critical of him doing that? You know,
After week 2.
After week 2. Do you think? I thought he was because he was there for the week 3 game. So do you think that particular addition was a cry for help, or was it a smart move?
I would much rather have a head coach recognize where he feels he's stretched too thin, and when he's learning the ebbs and flows of a head coaching role, recognizing where he needs some assistance in the short term up front, I think is a sign of a good leader, in my opinion. Okay. So if you're coming into a role, for example, I come from big business. I work at a pretty large organization, and I come from really big businesses here, including like IBM and other places like that. Mm-hmm. One of the big things that you push for in leadership is recognition of where, like, what you don't know. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I think that Hackett has recognized is that I've never been a head coach before. And as a result, I'm still figuring out the nuances of the additional responsibilities of the head coaching role. And
that's fair.
And I think I look, if he continues to have the gentleman that they brought in for like 2, 3, 4 years, my comment changes. At some point you have to learn the role and then adapt to it, right? Mm-hmm. But if you have a guy here for, say, the remainder of the 22 season, and then you are off to the races on your own after doing well, I just think that that's a leader recognizing his initial weaknesses, addressing them quickly. Again, in 2 weeks, recognizing that, bringing someone in, that's someone making decisive decisions. And if he can then move on from that and continue to grow, more power to you. Recognize your weaknesses, fix them before they actually turn into being detrimental situations for the team.
Yeah, because some coaches, especially play calling coaches, never fire their or do away with their game management coordinator because it's just too much to do in one sitting. So I was just curious because a critic made a comment about the fact that he should have had that in place already because it's not like he's coming into the NFL for the first time. So he knows what coaches have on their staff. So he should have hired the staff fully before he even got to the point of calling a real live game. So I was just curious about what you thought about that.
No, I see that I disagree with. Because one thing that he would not know is just how much of his time would be taken up in game with other responsibilities.
Mm. Yeah, because they were comparing LaFleur. LaFleur is a play caller. So they was comparing LaFleur's, system versus his and where he came from. So they were saying, well, if LaFleur has it, why didn't you have it? So they were just being critical of that. So that's why I thought I'd bring it up.
Yeah, and Hackett probably felt that he had learned enough from LaFleur to understand that, or to think that he was potentially capable of balancing that role. Mm-hmm. And again, I think it's a sign of a good leader to make a very quick pivot in like 2 weeks. And making a call like that in 2 weeks is no small thing. So good for him. And you saw an immediate return on that pivot in our game 3 game when you saw a kind of a flow throughout the game for the first time for the Denver Broncos. So as far as I'm concerned, I think that's a leader doing what good leaders do.
Fair enough.
And now my opinion changes, as I mentioned earlier.
As the time goes on.
If this doesn't change come next season and the season after, then I start saying, dude, kick the training wheels off and you're either a head coach or you're not, right?
Right. What are we doing here?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then, obviously the other thing I just want to comment in that game is the Broncos absolutely made the right call by changing our punter, Corliss Waitman. He showed out in preseason and in this last game when I think he punted like 11 times or 10 times or something to that effect.
Yeah, and the battle of the punters.
And if I'm not mistaken, Corliss pinned the Niners inside the 15, I think, on every punt.
Yeah, no, he definitely did some damage. Boom.
Yeah, and if he can keep that kind of trajectory up, I'd be very curious to see if that really ought to be Pro Bowl, in my opinion. If you can,
Was
start
that a pun you just slid in there though about keeping the trajectory up, or was that just straight?
Oh no, that was a pun. I'm glad you picked up on that.
See, hey, I'm there with you, brother. I'm there.
Arya, you had to ask.
Yeah, I'm glad you picked up on that. It was subtle, but I just had to, slide it up in there.
That's what she
Tito,
said.
you're late.
Oh, you goddamn grr. Coach got it before I could say it. Get on you. Grr. It's not often I don't get a chance to say that's when she said it. He said it first.
Oh, you got to be quicker than that.
So
no, that's what she said with you, Coach. That's what she said with you.
Oh, good one. See, hey, here you go. Look.
There you go.
There you go.
We're going to jump into our Week 4 games, which are coming quick for us. And actually, if we're going to be honest, these will be game defining or even season defining, I think, for some of our teams. I think that for the Chargers, if they don't come out and show out this week and get out of a 1-2 hole and get themselves evened up or squared up at 2-2, I think that could put them in a real difficult spot for the season, starting off at that point, to make it to like even a postseason potential run. Obviously, the Raiders, they would have to beat the Broncos this week, I think, if they want even a chance, if we're going to be honest, to even sniff the postseason, even though the odds are already, given the fact they started 0-3, stacked, I think, in the 98th percentile or something like that of not making postseason. And I just think from a morale perspective, the Chiefs this week, they need to bounce back. They need to start putting together a better game plan this week so that they kind of look like week 1 as opposed to, a slow downward trajectory in terms of offensive struggles and stuff, what you guys saw in this last game, even though you guys probably would or should have really ought to have won that game. It's besides the point. Is it did not look like the same Chiefs. You were not as offensive dominating as you typically are. And frankly, most fans and most analysts expect the Chiefs to, have a dominating offense because you have Andy Reid.
Yeah.
Right? You have Andy Reid, and he's kind of like the Gandalf on the sideline there as it comes to the offensive side of the ball, right?
It looks like
he's the Dumbledore.
Right.
Well, no, actually, sorry. Let me rephrase that. He's Gandalf after about 4 or 5 all you can eat buffets. And
little troll.
But nonetheless, he is an exceptionally gifted offensive mind. So everyone's just simply expecting him to put up a potent offense because he's done that everywhere he's gone.
Yeah,
I'm glad you said that because Cap's beard reminds me of Gandalf's beard. That I've been wondering what his beard reminds me of. It's Gandalf's beard. That's it. Thank you, Rich. Appreciate you. I've been trying to figure that out for weeks. Like Gandalf's beard. That's what it is. Yes, indeed. So yes, okay, we're good now.
We've now figured it all out, have we?
Yes, we have. As long as he doesn't smell it. You just saw that commercial, that Allstate commercial. We got smells it. Oh, he did it. Oh, it's gross.
I like to smell my beard.
Hey, I've seen the commercial. I haven't heard the dialogue, but I knew exactly where you go for it. It said, "At least he hasn't." And as soon as you said, "At least he hasn't," I was right there.
Smell my beard. Oh,
I was right there. That's right.
Smell my beard at the meals.
So, Alex, I'm going to kick it off with you first with our first 3-point stance video from the Locked On Bucs podcast. I'm going to go ahead and throw it up. Our 3-point stance guest here. We've already called him out on Twitter. I really want to thank him for jumping on, and for everyone involved. His son is going to be having surgery in the next week or so. If we can all keep his son in our thoughts and prayers. It is a leg injury, so it is something that is not seen as a major one. But everyone at Wild Wild West, please reach out to our next guest here from the Locked On Bucs podcast in James Yarko. I'm going to go ahead and throw up the 3-point stance on what the Bucs need to do to beat, Alex, your Kansas City Chiefs.
I throw up against the
James Yarko here from the Locked On Bucs podcast and deputy editor of BucsNation.com, doing the 3-point stance, talking about what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers need to do in order to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think first and foremost, it's about protecting Tom Brady. They are still having issues with the makeshift offensive line that they are dealing with. You still have an all-pro in Tristan Wirfs along the right side at tackle. You still have Shaq Mason, who was a trade from the New England Patriots, somebody very familiar with Tom Brady there at right guard. But then at center, you have the second-year player out of Notre Dame, Robert Hainsey, who is filling in for an injured Ryan Jensen. Next to him at left guard, you have rookie Luke Gedeke, who, in my opinion, would not be the starter if it weren't for an unfortunate injury to Aaron Stinney in the preseason, causing him to miss out on the 2022 season. So he's still adapting to the NFL game, and it has created some problems. Then at left tackle, they're down to their third string guy, Brandon Walton. Donovan Smith suffered an injury against the Dallas Cowboys in week 1 with a hyperextended elbow. He's still trying to come back from that, but for him, it's going to be about pain tolerance and pain management throughout the year once he finally does return. His backup, Josh Wells, got injured and was placed on injured reserve. So we know that Tom Brady has weapons sometimes. We'll get to that in a moment. And he needs to be protected in order to move the ball down the field. Those protection issues, especially along his blind side, have caused some plays to unravel early on throughout the year. They're having to do these short dump offs. Plays are not being sustained. He's getting pressure. He's getting sacked. And against the Kansas City Chiefs, it's going to be vital for Tom Brady to be protected in order to get the ball to some of those weapons. And that brings me to point number 2. This team needs to get healthy. You had Mike Evans serving a 1-game suspension for his altercation with Marshawn Lattimore in New Orleans in week 2. But Chris Godwin suffered a hamstring injury in week 1 against the Dallas Cowboys. Julio Jones has a partially torn PCL, according to Fox Sports' Jay Glazer. But Tampa Bay Buccaneers head coach Todd Bowles said that Julio could have played against the Green Bay Packers, and they kept him out as a precaution. So they're optimistic that Julio will be back on the field against the Kansas City Chiefs in week 4 on Sunday Night Football. You did see the utilization of Russell Gage increase dramatically against the Green Bay Packers. He was targeted 13 times, finished with 12 receptions, over 80 yards, and of course that touchdown with 14 seconds left in the game. They brought him in to be that number 3 guy after Mike Evans and Chris Godwin during the offseason before Julio was brought in to be a part of this. And his utilization through the first 2 weeks was incredibly frustrating. He was getting a lot of very short targets when he was targeted at all. But bringing back Mike Evans, bringing back Julio Jones potentially, and then the eventual arrival of Chris Godwin will start to even all of that out. But against the Chiefs, at least, you have Mike Evans back and you have Russell Gage becoming a larger part of the offense, which is crucial. There's a lot of opportunity for the Buccaneers to create space for these receivers in the open field and allow them to make some plays with their legs instead of relying on the deep ball that we've seen from Tom Brady through his first 2 seasons in Tampa. They like to take a lot of deep shots, but it hasn't been there due to protection issues and due to pass catchers being in and out of the lineup due to injury, or in Mike Evans' case, suspension. Finally, the third and most important point is bring the pressure. The Buccaneers are one of the best defenses in the NFL through 3 weeks in terms of points allowed per game. They are tied for number 1 in takeaways, including they are first in fumble recoveries. They are tied for 3rd in interceptions. And a lot of that is predicated on the pressure that they've been able to generate with their pass rushers. Vita Vea is going to continue to be an absolute force. He always is. But then you have rookie Logan Hall, who just notched his first sack of the season against Aaron Rodgers on Sunday in week 3. You have the edge presence of Shaq Barrett, a known commodity, and you're starting to see the emergence of Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who has taken over that full-time starting role with the departure of Jason Pierre-Paul. On top of that, something that we saw plenty of in Super Bowl 55 is pressure coming from the inside linebackers, Devin White and Levante David. Todd Bowles is incredibly creative and incredibly intelligent in scheming these blitzes and disguising them to keep somebody like Patrick Mahomes guessing consistently. You also have 4 safeties in Antoine Winfield Jr., Mike Edwards, Logan Ryan, and Keanu Neal that can play in the slot, they can play deep, they can blitz, they can play in the box. There's a lot of ways that they can disguise what they're doing across the board with these defensive playmakers to keep the pressure on Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't have Tyreek Hill to just heave the ball to anymore, so the Bucs will have to key in on Travis Kelce, who Levante David did a phenomenal job locking up in Super Bowl 55. Look for that to be a key matchup throughout this game. Protect Brady, get those pass catchers back on the field, and keep the pressure on Patrick Mahomes all night long against the Kansas City Chiefs in Week 4 on Sunday Night Football.
So I wanted to thank James again for jumping on. He really was a fantastic guest for us to have on here. Gave us some great information, insight, and frankly, as AFC West fans, we're just simply not going to have an insight into players, where they fit, how they're doing, that sort of thing. And that's why we bring on these great guests for the 3-point stance to talk about their teams and how they relate to our AFC West teams collectively. Alex, as I throw over to you, what were your thoughts on that 3-point stance?
No, it was, he made some pretty solid points. I assumed a Tampa fan would harp on the Super Bowl, just because why not? Even though we're 2 years removed from that, and it's a totally different offensive line. But I do think that that's the biggest key. Well, really the biggest key in any playing the Chiefs or playing an opponent would be the amount of pressure you can get on the QB. I think that KC is going to be more successful than Tampa will be. Then Tampa will be on getting constant pressure on Mahomes just because
deserves more airtime.
A totally revamped offensive line. He talked about Vita Vea getting pressure, and how he did in the Super Bowl, but totally different center and arguably, top 2 center in the NFL right now. Totally different guards, totally different. Not really a sweater DZ, but whatever.
The cardigan.
Yeah. But, a lot of the players he was talking about outside of Mike Evans are all questionable right now. Logan Hall is questionable. Russell Gage was a limited participant in practice. There's a lot of unknown on who's going to be available for Tampa. Granted, you can't really count out Tom Brady because he's friggin' Tom Brady. And I feel like whatever team he's on, always seems to find a way to beat KC. But I just don't think you could really compare how the Super Bowl went to sort of the, being able to be as successful in terms of getting pressure. And then, I think it's similar to the Colts game. If they can come out and have good sustained drives and rely more on the run, as you saw them do in the first 2 weeks, and then absolutely went away in the third week. I think they'll have a pretty successful outing. It should be noted that the game might be in Minneapolis because of the pending doom that is hitting the Bay Area. So that could be a weird component to this. A Sunday night game in Minnesota.
Yeah. How often does that happen?
Yeah, I don't know.
I was going to ask about that because I knew that with the hurricane coming that they had to move it. I didn't realize they moved it to Minnesota.
Well, that's just it was either them or New Orleans because they're the only two that are playing the London game, so they know for a fact. Because at first I was seeing it might be in Dallas and like somewhere way away from the storm, but Dallas has a home game, so I guess the only contingent plan was the two teams they know for a fact aren't using their stadiums. To me, I think New Orleans would have made more sense, but maybe they're getting a little hit with the storm too. And
No, not at all. Not at all, man. It's us,
Really?
and then go out the East Coast and then hit South Carolina.
yeah, but
It's going right up the
anyways,
coast,
you know,
cutting across Florida and then going right up the coastline.
Yep.
okay. I just
I know why,
I
because I
Midwest
didn't want to
have
give
the Colts
give you
together.
guys. I didn't want to give the Buccaneers a home game because that would have been like a de facto home game for the Bucs if they had moved it to Nolens.
But it was a home game for the Bucs, though, so you think it would have, you know what I mean? Like you think they would make it closer for their fans than anyone else.
But no, they actually made it closer for y'all.
Oh well, Chiefs fans travel pretty well regardless. But back to the game. I think going into it,
back to the game. Fuck what he said.
Also, Ed and Mike go Cardinals, just so you know. But I think that KC is going to be pretty successful at getting pressure on Brady. That's kind of the recipe to beat him. He can't move, but he's so efficient in terms of timing with his receivers and getting the ball out quick. That's going to be the biggest key, especially if he really only has Mike Evans out there. There's going to be kind of a lack of continuity and rhythm with throwing the ball, that if they can just kind of keep the pressure that they've had, for the first 3 weeks here, it should be a pretty good day. As much as you want to compare to the Super Bowl matchup, I mean, it's not the same Bucs team as much as it's not the same Chiefs team. And I just, I think that they're going to kind of come into this, I'm sure, studying the hell out of the Super Bowl film and what Todd Bowles did in terms of certain blitz packages and things like that, to kind of counter that. But I just think that
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
you don't have to, I mean.
No, let me say it again for those that might have missed it. Exactly.
You say Ed Zachary?
No, I did not.
You have
If you
Ed
can't
Zachary disease. Did you know that?
Understand the words that are coming out of you might have a problem with your headphones.
Yeah. Did you know? Do you have Ed Zachary disease though?
Exactly. Yeah.
Where your face looks exactly like your ass.
If I have this area of an ass, we got a problem, man.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. You have way more problems than that.
Yeah.
It's the Texans. They were in Dallas.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Come on, Tito. Give them something that's worthwhile.
But I do think it's going to be a good game. I mean, you can't really count out, like I said, Tom Brady. There's going to be points on the board. But the way that the Chiefs defense has been playing, even against the Colts, and what a lackluster game that was, the defense really did play well. And outside of demands for firing Reed and Bieniemy, as Chiefs Twitter usually does in a loss, there was a lot of praise for how the defense played, and how they've been playing, for what a lot of people thought would be the weaker point of the team. So they've clearly, made that a focal point in the offseason to sort of revive the defense. And that's kind of seeing it come to fruition up to this point in terms of the pressure they've been getting and sort of just the way they've been able to hold some pretty good offensive weapons in check for not having a lot of money and big names invested into it. So, especially if Gage and Julio and some of these guys are limited or just not even 100%, I think that the Chiefs have a pretty good, recipe here to have a pretty successful day. It's unfortunate that you can't really ever count out Tom Brady just because dude's for 20 plus years now always found a way to win games. But I just see the roster's not really matching up in terms of athleticism and things like that, especially considering sort of the injury bugs they've had on the offensive line, on top of the pretty key components that they lost through retirement are just leaving. I think that the Chiefs are just going to have, a pretty good chances of getting pretty constant pressure on Brady and sort of messing up the offensive flow. To me, the biggest thing is going to be if they can hold the run as well as they hold Jonathan Taylor and some of the other and James Conner, and Fournette's not a bad running back by any means, but I feel like sometimes Tampa Bay, at least from games I've watched, have kind of gone in and out of being a running team and not being one. And I think if these players like Gage and Julio are out, you're going to see them run more, and that could be a problem if the defense is not stopping it as well as they were against a Jonathan Taylor. So, it's going to come down to who's available for Tampa, but in the long run, I think you see KC bounce back from a poor performance against inferior team, and I think you see a lot better offensive showing, and I think some of the kinks get worked out. And I predict it to be a KC win, but it's going to be a close one just because of who's on the other side of the ball.
I always root for an atomic explosion.
Yeah.
When the Chiefs and the folk, actually that's the fake and the faux Pirates together are the folk Pirates. When they play, so maybe they can take out the stadium in Minnesota as well. So yeah, that would be it. Just saying.
No, I think Alex, you brought up some interesting points there. We're kind of a little bit ways through the show. Anyone who is still with us, we really do appreciate you. We've got quite a lively chat going. Anyone who is watching us over on Twitter, if you can just go ahead and jump on over to either Facebook or YouTube. If you are leaving comments, we sadly can't see them. That's a Twitter problem, not an us problem. And for those of you who are on YouTube, we ask really nicely, kindly, if you will, that you go ahead and click that like button. It really does help with the YouTube algorithm and gets more in the chat that are just like you in terms of whether it be Raiders fans, Broncos fans, Chiefs fans, or Chargers fans. And just on a side note, all of us here have our own channels. Locked On Defense for Coach. MHRT Network is who I am affiliated with, and Captain Jack Rackham is there on YouTube. All of the links to channels, our channels, are below in the video description. We greatly appreciate it if you could jump over to each of them and like this video. Again, it really, really does help with the YouTube algorithm. YouTube looks for both likes and comments, and that's what elevates that into those kind of suggestions and stuff for other fans just like you. So, Alex, I think that was great. And frankly, that Bucs guy was fantastic. He really dropped some really, really great knowledge, gave some great information for all of our fans here. And frankly, gives you a lot to think about. And the other thing is Vita Vea is just that good. Like he's
a dog. Yeah, Dude was a running back in high school.
Imagine that.
That's not fair.
It's not.
Someone
it's
that
not
big
fair.
is that.
Actually, in fact, one would argue that should be illegal.
Yeah.
Well, it is until high school. Most kids, you can't be that size to play running back in boys club.
That was always my problem.
Oh, they actually have rules against that in high school?
Yes, not in high school. Boys club.
Middle school.
Up to middle school, yeah. Up to middle school, yep.
Yeah, it was a weight.
So what's the size and weight limit?
I don't know. It varies per area, but it generally, like, you got to be less than 200 pounds, I think. in order to play a skill position in before high school. I think that's the rule. I think you have to be below 200 pounds.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's around there.
I was not at
Oh,
it.
so Okoye or Henry, that doesn't matter. That those boys were big as well. So you have a kid like Christian Okoye, it wouldn't matter to him. And yes, I actually remember him, Alex. Just to make sure you do.
Nightmare.
There you
That's
go.
him.
There you go.
Well, the question is what weight were they in grade school?
Right, that's the thing. They could have, because I don't think Vita Vea was that size when he was in. If he was in middle school, my God! But I don't think he was that
some of
size.
these dudes, they go to college and they kind of make efforts to really put weight on him.
Right, right.
So like he could have very well gone to. I think he's from Washington. Didn't he go to Washington? I think he could have gone in there weighing 250, and they're like,
He came out 330.
330.
You're right.
7 times a day.
There you go. 5,000 calorie a day diet.
My mom confirming. I was always
There you go. Hi, Mrs. Gibbons. Hi. I hope you didn't hear me swear already. I hope you didn't hear me swear.
Great job, Mom. Great job with the fun facts.
Yeah. Took me to McDonald's one too many times.
I'm trying to remember what my weight was in middle school.
Yeah. I know it was enough I didn't need to know. DZ, from what I've DZ, sorry, wrong show.
Get it right, man.
What I've seen though, Bucker
Queen's
is,
English, buddy. Queen's English.
Bucker is practicing, so
yeah, we need that. We need that.
Today, and I think they already cut the dude. I think they cut him mid-game in Indy. Probably said, you find your own ride.
He couldn't get back on the plane, right?
It was funny. So after that, Andy Reid's doing a press conference the next day. And they're like, so what's going on with the kicker? And he's like, I can't comment on that, but Veach is working that out. And everyone's like, you might as well just not answer if you
right.
Like you already told it. But from what I've seen,
when the GM is working something out, that's normally not a good thing.
Yeah. Thing that blows my mind is that dude won apparently a 5 kicker, competition to get signed. And then, I guess just the brevity of it all got to him. I would hate to be a kicker though, or a goalie, because it's like the worst positions. Because if you make a kick, stop a goal, like you get no praise, you did your job. And then it's like always, the negative part of it seems to come down, when the game's on the line and then you're the scapegoat. So it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. But yeah.
Yeah, unless you're the guy that kicked a 64-yard. Oh, Cap, that was bound to happen at some point. You can't have a hurricane rolling through and not have a power outage.
There you go.
So
for what DZ's saying though, yeah, I mean, I think it is that kind of point that out. We, as much as we talked about the AFC West being the most dominant, the AFC South, at least Jacksonville, has really been kind of a shocker this year.
I'm not surprised at all.
Man, imagine them win a division. Like, imagine that.
Hey,
no, I'm not surprised at all.
But at the same time, they have like 15 first-round picks
the last 2 seasons.
Oh yeah. The personnel is not the issue. It was
it was the coaching, and
exactly.
And they finally got the right coaching in place to coach up the people that they had on the team.
The best tweet I saw was after Peterson won Sunday. Someone tweeted that he's passed Urban Meyer for 4th all time on the wins for Jacksonville coaches, and that was actually a true fact.
Hilarious.
Well, I mean, there was a period of time there where Jacksonville had a legit defense a number of years ago.
With Ramsey and Calais Campball.
They were
to the AFC Championship game with Blake Bortles. I mean,
right.
No, I meant like in the early years. Like there was a period of time when they
Henderson and
Brian Leftwich era. Oh, you talking about?
And they had Henderson and Stroud or whatever, those two like massive.
There was a period of time there for like 3 years where they had a pretty scary defense.
And Mark
that was full of guys that hadn't really gone anywhere in the NFL yet, and then they kind of like tapered back down again, kind of to what we know them to be now. and then they had that Bortles stretch there where they had, Calais Campbell, et cetera, et cetera. And then they traded away all those pieces, and now they seem to be maybe all the way back and more when we see this season. I mean,
we all got to play them, so we'll see.
They're scary.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, but they are scary. Like they are legit. They are a legit scary team.
Well, that's
the tell is going to be this weekend. They got to play. They got to play the Eagles, and that's Peterson's homecoming. Yeah. So that's going to be the tell. Oh,
they're gonna. You do realize that Peterson's going to basically put up like a big banner that says "Kill him."
I'm sure. Yeah, he's extra motivation for this one.
Oh yeah,
he wants back at Roseman and Lurie big time. You for firing him.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely a high motivation this week.
Yeah, he's looking at like the D tackles and the outside linebackers and just say, I want to see them killed. I don't want to see them on their back.
The program.
Yeah,
hit the tight end so hard his girlfriend dies.
Yeah,
kill everybody.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
But no, I mean, for KC, they for sure have to, I think, in my opinion, win this week because they're hitting a pretty rough stretch in their schedule with what I thought Jacksonville being the break at the end of it. But, they got
not
Tampa,
so fast, my friend.
Tampa, Vegas, Buffalo, San Fran, and Tennessee, all coming up here. And that's
Tennessee may be your break.
Maybe.
Ironically.
They might turn it around. I mean, and I feel like Casey's defense, like I talked about with the run, it's like sometimes they show up and are just, unstoppable forces in terms of stopping the run. And then other games, it's like they've never known how to defend it. And, Tennessee, similar to Indy, and, is one of those teams that's would really kill you if you can't stop them. Although I'm not sold. I kind of think Derrick Henry's lost a step or is not all the way healthy because he doesn't seem to be as dominating as he was last year.
Well, that coupled with the fact they lost two of their Pro Bowl linemen,
Well, Taylor Lewan's always out. I mean, that guy makes it like 3 weeks and then he's hurt.
Jesus.
But yeah, it's.
So I was going to try to jump into the Raiders Broncos game, but I'm going to have the Broncos Raiders game last now in hopes that maybe Captain might be able to jump back on. So. Or although he may have gone to NFL Nation Live.
I think he did that last night, actually. I thought I got alert that he did that last night in lieu of the
anyways,
storm.
we'll wait and see kind of what happens with Captain. But Coach, we've gone ahead and brought in the Texans to discuss your game versus the Texans.
Is it?
It is Mark Lane who was on before for the Texans to give us the take when the Broncos played. And he is back to give us his take on the Texans versus the Broncos, or versus the Chargers, rather. And Coach, this will be an interesting one because the Texans have done really well actually against the running the ball and some other things. So let's hear what Mark has to say with the Texans as they go up against the Chargers.
In order for the Houston Texans to beat the LA Chargers in week 4, what it's going to take is the Texans essentially taking the air out of the ball. As we know, Justin Herbert and the Chargers' high-flying passing offense, they've got the ability to generate points. They've got the ability to get off to a fast start and to build a lead and just allow the Texans to chip away at it with their, 300-yard total offense type of approach in the modern, in the year 2022. We'll see how that works. And so in order for the Texans to win, they've got to take the air out of the ball. They've got to use Dameon Pierce. The rookie's been doing a good job, the 4th-round pick from Florida. The problem for Houston with their run game has been the chunk plays haven't been there. The big plays in the running game, those 20-yard type runs, they just haven't been there. And they're going to have to generate those because that helps keep Justin Herbert and the Chargers offense on the sidelines, which is basically the only chance that Houston's going to have in this game. Because if it's Davis Mills versus Justin Herbert, mano a mano, I mean, it's not going to look pretty for Houston, just simply because they've had trouble moving the offense. They've scored 29, 20 in their past 3 games. So just even getting over the 20-point threshold has been very difficult. And that this doesn't lend itself well against the Chargers, who, even though they've got issues with Rashawn Slater and just the problems with the availability and everything therein, it's still not that that's still not going to take away from the Chargers' ability to generate points. So Houston has also got to get after Justin Herbert. With Jerry Hughes, he's got 4 sacks through 3 games. I mean, pretty good for a guy 34 years old who only had 2 sacks through 17 games with the Buffalo Bills last year. But it can't just be Jerry Hughes. Rasheem Green, free agent that came over from the Seattle Seahawks, going to have to get in there. Jonathan Grenard, who's in his 3rd year, former 3rd-round pick from Florida, is going to have to show up and look like the war daddy that he was at least last year for Houston's pass rush. And then Jalen Petrie. He has been a force at all 3 levels of the defense. He'll get you a tackle for loss, he'll get you a sack, he'll get you interceptions. He's going to have to show up again in some way. He's going to have a tackle for loss, patrolling the run lanes, just make his presence felt on the back end in some measure. And if Houston, I think the number one goal, keep hitting on it, is if they can get the run game going to where they're keeping the Chargers off the field, the only chance they have. Take it into the 4th quarter, see what happens. Maybe one of these days in 2022, the Texans may close out a game in the 4th quarter. And their last win, actually, was against the Los Angeles Chargers at NRG Stadium, Week 16 of 2021. Why not get the first win of 2022 in a similar fashion?
I just want to thank Mark for jumping on, Captain. I'm glad you were able to get back in and the power bounced back on so quickly there. It really, I said I was going to jump into the Raiders right after Alex went into the Chiefs in hopes of avoiding the power outage, but it is what it is. So again, I want to thank Mark for joining us there. That was fantastic. Sadly, not a great ringing endorsement for the Texans. Although I will say that, Captain, I did mention to Mark when he and I were chatting that you were a fan of Pierce coming out of college, who is the running back now for the Texans. He's a Florida.
The kid from the Florida Gator, man.
The Florida Gator, yeah, and Mark was even making multiple comments just about how in college he was that punch in, get to the end zone kind of guy. Nice runs per carry or yards per carry, whatever, however you want to slice that. So he was pleased to say that, to know that there was others that knew who he was too. But yeah, he did very well against the Broncos. Pierce did. And so on that note, because a good running game is a great way to control the clock, Coach. What do you think of Pierce? You saw him against the Broncos. The Broncos have generally done very well defensively this year, but he did give the Broncos some fits. What are your thoughts in terms of the Texans against your Chargers?
Well, all his points were valid. In all honesty, if they do execute that, and I definitely want to give them a quick shout out for identifying Jalen Petrie. In my on one of my mini podcasts, I was singing that guy's praises. Him and JC Woods were a tandem in Baylor, and Jalen Petrie is a stud, and I think they got a real big time steal with him, drafting him in I believe the 3rd round. So yeah, so he's a stud. Definitely give him credit for that. Now, what I will say is that yes, they did beat us last season. We had a rash of COVID cases in that particular game, and our run defense was porous. Clearly, that's not the case this year. I think we definitely have rectified that particular aspect of it. So the idea of them running the ball at will on us like they did last year is probably not going to happen, in all honesty. But I will say that in retrospect, what we should do conversely to them is run the ball, because they have one of the worst run defenses in the entire league at this point. So hopefully that Lombardi and Staley realize that, and they take a time or two to run the ball in this particular game to allow for us to have a more balanced offense and take advantage of their weakness. So that should be something we should be our mindset going into the game. So for sure, we should definitely run the ball.
So you're hoping to go from 12 runs to 14 runs?
I'm hoping for 20 or 25.
Oh, okay.
You know what? We're going to run the ball. 13 carries.
There you go. The whole game.
Really emphasize the running.
Yeah, had it off 13 times at the beginning of the game. We're never going to see it again. Yeah. Never going to see it again. So yeah, but yeah, I think that he, like I said, he makes a lot of points, but I think that they're talent wise, they're still rebuilding. I think they have some good pieces on their team, but I think they're still a little bit away from being a competitive team, in all honesty. So this, to me, I think this is even more of a trap game than the Chiefs had against the Colts, because I would give the Colts a lot more respect from a roster perspective than I do the Texans at this point. So it's a trap game for us, in all honesty. So we got to come out and play. We can't sit back on our laurels and just hope that a game comes to us. You got to take it. So if we punch them in the mouth early and often, I think the game would be it's into our favor. Just run the ball, be physical, because I think that's what Jamari and Zion's calling card is, run blocking. So get behind them hog mollies and let's just push the pile. Let's just move the ball. And if it's ugly or if it's not, you just got to give W's at this point. Because it may not be pretty at this point. Whether or not we get a full complement of people that it's not on IR back this week or not, we definitely got to take wins where there can be had, and they're not tough. It's tough games like the division games we got to play. So I think if we play a balanced offense, and we can stop their run, because I'm not overly concerned with their pass and their receiving core.
Davis Mills is not bad.
No, he's not. He's not. But I mean, he's not Patrick Mahomes or Russell Wilson either. So I mean, I think we will be better off going against him than we would against those guys with the injuries we have. So I'm curious to see what the pass rush does. As long as we stay stout in the run game early, and if we get up on them, they'll give up on it. And start playing pass. So I think that should be the game plan. Just to execute and get up on them early. Make them give up on a run, make them one-dimensional, and it should lend to our favor.
I actually wonder how, because I don't know if you saw, there's a stat that's been posted on Twitter now with Davis Mills' completion percentages in terms of numbers, and it kind of goes in terms of 10 to 20. 20 to 30, and then like 30 plus, I think was the 3 general breakdowns for Mills. And 10 to 20, he's in like the 70th or almost 70th percentile in terms of completion percentage. And then he goes down into like basically the 50s and 40s as he kind of progresses down the field. Mm-hmm. So I think what that really says about the Texans offense is
they don't have
can your pass rush beat their offensive line on a consistent basis to force him to throw quickly and or not be able to throw? Mm-hmm. is one. And then 2 is, how is your linebacking core and how is the remainder of your secondary going to be in the short, quick passing game? Mm-hmm. And if the answer to that is we can lock them down, then I think this is going to be a rough game for the Texans. Sure. But if your answer is, well, we're kind of okay, then I actually think that you may have some challenges with them, because I can say that their offensive line is pretty darn good at run blocking.
Yeah, I think the left side of the line is pretty good. I mean, it's kind of like we had last year. Our left side was good, and the right side is kind of a makeshift because they got Kenyon Green over there with Tunsil. But I think that overall, I mean, that can go for anybody in the league. To be honest, if you kind of let people hang around, one bad play here, one mistake there, you in a dogfight, and it will be
100%.
like that throughout the whole entire game. So again, that's why I say it's imperative that we take care of business early. You do that, then again, they're ice skating uphill. I like to say, but if they are left in the game, second, third quarter, they're kind of hanging around. It's not, we're not in deep control of the game. It could turn. It could definitely turn.
And is there any news on JC?
Well, he's practicing this week. He's had a sore ankle last week. He is practicing, so my hope is him and Lindsey play, because Lindsey's playing again as practicing as well. So everybody that's been hurt but not on the IR is practicing at this moment. So I'm hopeful that we have a full contingent of people that are available that can play this week. So that will help us.
So here's a follow up to that.
Practice. We talk about practice,
not a game, but practice. Yeah.
So here's the follow up to that. Then is, do you think you would be smart to play JC Jackson in this game at the risk of him re-injuring his ankle? Or is it a better risk longer term for your team to say, dress up and sit on the bench, you're not playing, and keep him for the rest of the season? And I'm quite surprised that no one else in the chat has jumped in with a similar question to that, because I mean, at some point you have to look at either short-term and long-term, and that's something that every fan really ought to be looking at for their respective teams. So Coach, I'm going to throw it over to you for your response to something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean,
The Hurricane's not hitting where you are, man. What's up?
We need to talk about this.
Take about that when it came down to
can you not see us?
It's not me. I didn't touch any buttons. No, Tito, do not say that. I did not boot that.
So once Mr. Roboto comes back, we'll get some more Chargers information.
I think you do have to play him, though. I mean, it's the same mindset as they played Herbert, right? Like if they were going to approach it like as a grand scheme.
Alex, you're stealing my thunder, man. That was the second one.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even there was national announcers that were saying, can someone tell Staley that you're down by like 20 points and tell Herbert to go find the bench?
Stop throwing the ball.
Yeah, just get gone. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I can't remember who it was.
And that's why you got like Guyton got hurt. I mean, they were throwing the ball downfield down 30-10 for no reason other than pride at that point.
It makes no sense whatsoever.
Side note, I love this little sub chat we have here of everyone's concert experiences. There's a lot of drugs in this chat, it seems like.
I was gonna say when I did the when I was on that Barstool Sports, and they said that dude's seen Jerry Garcia like 20 times at least, you know.
Because drugs are bad, okay.
Coach, you back? Are you okay now, Coach?
Yeah, I'm good. The damn Windows update. Ever since I got a Windows update, it's been messing with my network adapter for some reason. I don't know why. It gets dicey sometimes, but yeah, Tito said I look better frozen. That's hilarious.
You had a pretty good.
Here, hold on.
Good.
Ready?
Das Boot.
Das Boot. Das Boot. Yes. So where do we leave off at?
We didn't hear anything you said. Yeah.
Right.
All I heard was a bunch of breaking up, and then it like cut in, and you said the Chiefs are the best, and then it was.
I never said that. I know that's a lie.
That came out.
Sorry, sir, that's a lie.
No, actually, that's what I heard between all of the gurgles. And
The lie detector test determined you are the father.
Yeah.
That was a lie.
Sorry, sir, that's a lie.
No. There was a bunch of Cylon sounds like, I thought it was like original Battlestar Galactica, not the newer, better one, but the original one.
So now that R2D2 is gone, and Coach is back, so that's fantastic. We didn't really hear much of. Basically, you ended right when you were about to start answering. You went absolutely just haywire.
Right.
So, with J.C. Jackson, there really is two trains of thought here, right? Which is, do you put the dude on the field who gives you the best chance to win, which is obviously J.C. Jackson,
right?
Or do you hold him out because you want to take a longer term or a long view on the season and say, we believe we could probably win this game without him, keep him on the bench, and rest him?
Well, I had a similar take about that when we played the Chiefs, because I said they should hold him out against the Raiders and play. Against the Chiefs is what we ended up doing. But in this games, I feel like it really doesn't matter. Because again, not no knock on the opponents we have coming up, but we got the Browns after the Texans, and we got the Broncos, and we got the Seahawks. So looking at that receiving core outside of the Broncos, it doesn't scare me from a weapons perspective. So I don't think it really matters. I think that we need to make a statement, as far as getting a solid W with all the woes we've had. So if he's healthy enough to play, I say he plays.
Googs are bad. Okay.
So, and I was just telling the guys, I don't know if you were able to hear any of the podcast, but as you were trying to bounce back from the kind of the network glitches there, but that kind of leads me into the next question, and then we'll jump real quick into the Broncos Raiders here, which is, you were down by a good number of points in that last game, and I'm not trying to pile on or anything here, but you were. It's just a fact.
It's the fact.
It's just a fact, right?
No quorum about that
exactly
statement.
what it is, and there's no denying it. There's no denying it, right?
Right.
So there is a good percentage, actually, of Chargers fans who were questioning the reasoning for leaving Justin Herbert in when you had no chance at winning the game and every chance at losing your franchise quarterback for the season.
True.
And I actually think that is a fair way of framing the circumstances because, in my opinion, it's dead accurate. So, did that have you start questioning the head coach's choices?
No, it didn't. Once I realized why he was still out there, because he asked him, did he, about how he felt when the game was, I guess you can quote unquote say insurmountable. And it was a morale thing. It was a trust building thing. It was a I guess you can say a camaraderie moment. Because even though Rashawn Slater was out, we were down 28 points and all this good stuff. He wanted to be out there with his guys. That was Justin Herbert's call. It wasn't the coach saying he should sit or he feel like he's in pain, he shouldn't go. It was just a simple fact that he wanted to stay at war with his guys. He didn't want to leave the battlefield with it, even despite the fact that we were up against it, as far as the score is concerned. So Justin made the call, and the coach went with it because he felt like that it would steal some trust and boost morale in a sense that the guys would rally around Justin for him being a tough and fact that he wanted to ride out the entire game with the team versus sitting out and letting the backup play. Now you could argue semantics about whether or not he should or shouldn't have been out there. But I get both sides, as being a former player and a coach, I get both sides of it. You want to protect your franchise, but in the same breath, you want to keep the locker room, good, in good standing. So, it's kind of one of those things you kind of hedge your bet, hopefully that, nothing bad happens. So if he had made it that far, the likelihood of getting hurt, was slim. But I mean, again, it only takes one hit. You saw in the Chiefs game, he was fine throughout. He took one hit that didn't seem bad, but it ended up being bad. So, You just have to take the good with the bad, I guess.
I guess my stance on this is sometimes players need to be safe from themselves.
They do. Sometimes they do.
As a competitor,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to always want to compete. I finished 2 plays with a broken leg, which was, in hindsight, not the swiftest move in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I played an entire back end of a whole season with a broken arm. Again, equally not the swiftest move in the world, although I'm perfectly fine, thankfully, knock on wood. But the problem there is sometimes those who are competitive need to be safe from themselves. And I think I just think you need to be careful in especially a critical position, and frankly, a guy that keeps you in games. From getting further injured and further hurt. But with that in mind, I want to quickly go over to the Raiders and Broncos.
Yeah, before I fade out again.
Yeah, exactly. So, Coach, arguably one of the epic matches in the NFL, Raiders Broncos. It's got to be within, a select few in terms of rivalries in the NFL. I mean, I can only think of a handful that are at the same level. Given where we're at and where you're at, rather interesting, actually. I think that if anything, we will likely see the Broncos defense probably play a similar style game, which will be difficult, I think, for the Raiders, if I'm going to be kind. And then the question will be, to what extent can the Raiders do to continue to force the Broncos to struggle offensively?
That's kind of a loaded question. It's kind of a loaded question. So you're asking if how do I feel about what the Broncos can do to limit the Raiders' attack? Is that what you're saying?
Well, right now the Broncos have played reasonably good, especially I would argue the Niners are above average across the board and certainly are, based on record wise and just generally how they played this season, probably at or above the Raiders currently.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that they're going to end up there. I'm just saying as of right now, I think the Niners are either at a level or just a half notch above where the Raiders are at right now at this point in the season. And that's looking at the whole team, not just offense, not just defense. You got to look at everything put together because that's how football teams typically win games. So then the question is, can the Raiders give the Broncos defense enough fits to break the mold of keeping our opponent below 12 points? I mean, that's really what the issue is.
That's a tough ask, because what I'm struggling with when it comes down to the Raiders is their identity. Like, they haven't established an identity yet, like on either side, like running or passing. They haven't done it. I mean, outside of the nice game that Devontae had in the first game, they just don't seem to have a calling card in a sense. So, because I would like to believe, because Rich, you pointed out this particular aspect of the Broncos defense in certain spots, their interior run defense. So I would lend to the idea, although McDaniels is more of a passing style coordinator or coach. I would say that I would attack the interior of the D line and make them work. And get cheap, ugly yards early. Make it a physical game. That's what I would do to start off and see how well that lends to my offense's production and allow for them to get more aggressive and step up earlier in the box, and maybe we could take a shot over top and get a big play from Waller or Adams or somebody like that in singled up coverage. But it's just an idea of the issue with them doing that. And again, I haven't seen much production from a bell cow back like Josh Jacobs when you should be utilizing them in that fashion. So I think that's one of the biggest things they should do and can do that would allow them to be able to control a game, make it physical, make it ugly, keep Russell Wilson on the sideline. And, it will, lend to the idea that they could make this game, it will put the game directly in their favor if they were able to do that, is my point and all that. So I think those are the biggest things to do. But if they don't do that, if they run a style offense they've been running for the last 3 weeks, it doesn't bode well. I mean, only thing I would say that the Broncos need to do a more more consistently is get after the passer. You need to see more out of Chubb and Gregory getting after Carr. But again, Carr is probably the least mobile quarterback they're going to see in the first 4 weeks. So that lends.
How
to
much
them.
more pressure do you want from the outside edges for the Broncos? I mean, Gregory had 2 sacks, including a strip sack last game. Chubb had a knockdown and a sack, I think, last game as well. I mean, that's more than I can say for most other teams in the entire NFL out of their 2 edge rushers in a single game. And the Niners are no slouches on the O-line either.
Well, one team had 9 sacks. Who was that? The Eagles? Who was that had 9 sacks this week? They had 9 sacks. Yeah, they got the wins 9 times. So it's people out there getting sacks now.
An example that beat the Broncos doth not mean that everybody else then also was at that same level. It just doesn't, right? And so the point being is
the Broncos have 9 sacks total this year.
Yes,
out of 3 games.
But
Chubb's got 3.
But the point being is Gregory didn't show out at all the first game, like almost non-existent.
First 2, I would say.
And then the last game just kind of blew it up.
Well, again, you need more of that. Like I said, if you can get the production out of them that Chubb had for game 1 and what Gregory had game 3, that would definitely bode well for the defense and obvious pass situations. So that would be the one thing that I could say, that if they can ratchet up the pressure and get after Carr like we did, then yeah, that would definitely lend to the idea that they're going to be hard pressed to score points for sure.
Captain, what about you?
In what respect, sir?
Well, that's Jack, to answer your question. That's where my smirk came from. I was like, I didn't know Coach was the Raiders guy. Cap's just sitting over here.
I'm just a defensive guru, so he wanted my opinion from a defensive perspective because I'm the defensive guru. That's all.
I do agree with you though, Jack. The Chiefs would be totally boned if Mahomes got hurt. So no, I don't disagree or think that they'd be better.
So with regards to the Raiders, where you guys have been thus far,
anemic?
What do you think?
Is that the correct word? Anemic? I would say anemic is a good
that's
word.
a good one. That's a good one.
What do you call dog water?
No, I think we're better than dog water.
The Raiders have had flashes, but the thing is they haven't been able to stitch things together, and that's why you've seen potential on the field, and then you've just kind of questioned kind of why they weren't able to string it together to actually have success on the field. And the Broncos were similar to that in terms of moving the ball, where they got it all the way to the red zone and they said, I guess we don't want to score a touchdown here.
Well, that's why they call it the red zone for the Raiders. You get to the 20 and you stop.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess what the question here is, Captain, is given how lights out, I guess, is the best way of describing the Broncos defense at this point. I mean, unless we have some major turnarounds against the Raiders this week.
Can we dial that back a little bit? Because you played the Seahawks, the Texans, and the Niners.
No. See, you are stealing the points.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You're a Chargers fan, Coach.
I'm sorry.
You know what? If you want the effing hat, okay?
I don't. Trust me, I don't.
Go, man.
I don't. Unless I'm out of toilet paper. I don't need that.
Yeah, okay. Now, I'm just saying, I mean, yes, the Broncos defense, right, is giving up 12 points or averaging 12 points a game. But I'm like, look at who they've played.
Mm-hmm.
Look at who they've played. And yes, the defense is playing well, okay? And Russell Wilson so far is playing decently. I mean, to be honest, I haven't watched even a Raiders game this year because I don't have the time between the trips and back and forth. And I'm not lying to you. I have yet to see the Raiders games that I have on my DVR that I have all saved, aside from the 30 seconds that they said, hey, you made TV, and I had to go back and find it and then put it on my Facebook. That is the only portion of any game that I've seen other than what I've seen up front. All I'm saying is that I've yet to see a Broncos game. I've yet to see a Chiefs game, although people were telling me that I need to go back and watch the guy flipped out in the booth up above.
Ken Dorsey. Ken
Yeah, that was the
Dorsey.
Bills.
Yeah, he has Bills OC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the Bills guy, I was told, did the same thing. So I got to go back and watch that on YouTube because they said that he just had
he lost it.
Tourette's syndrome.
He lost it.
In the
Took it out
booth.
on that poor little tablet.
I know, right?
Yeah. But I haven't seen any of you guys play other than what I watched the Chargers game, so I watched the Chargers play, and I still stand by the fact that the Chargers could be 0-3, the Raiders could be 2-1, woulda, coulda, shoulda. I'm just gonna drop that right there. But the Raiders have seemed to always have had the Broncos' number for the most part over these years. And I know that every year is different, but I am hoping that maybe this is the impetus that they need to finally get their and I will go use the Queen's English, their shite together, okay, in a game that means something to them. Okay, there are people that said if Josh McDaniel doesn't do anything, he's a gone sucker. I don't know if that's true or not. I know that there are people in Vegas that say that, yet to be seen. As far as injuries, Hobbs is not going to play. Renfro is not going to play. Okay. Again, but you know what? Renfro not playing is a hit. But I tell you what, I'll take Mac Hollins, who destroyed the Titans defense.
He's leading the team in receiving right now.
And you know what? I'll go with whoever can catch the effing ball, and that includes you, Mr. Darren Waller, who I said if he gave everybody $20,000 that was in the crowd last week that's a Raiders fan off of that budget, that those big bags that he got before the season, he could still give me $20K and my friend $20K and the other people $20K and still have oodles of millions left over. And I think it was probably worth $20,000 to watch him just self-destruct in front of everybody. The Raiders, as you said, have not found an identity, and thank you for saying that good thing as well, Coach. They haven't. They have not done it. And it's a matter of they haven't employed the running game when they should employ the running game. Josh Jacobs was averaging 5.1 yards last week. He was averaging, I think, close to that the week before. And by the way, Josh Jacobs came in a day later than the team did on his own dime because he didn't fly with the team. He did not fly. Right? Yeah, he was sick, and he came in on his own dime because he wanted to play. And to me, that shows a lot. That shows a lot that he actually is looking to. Yeah, he's playing for himself this year because the Raiders did not pick up that fifth-year option. Maybe saying, you know what, Raiders. And I know I haven't done it in a while, Coach, so I'm going to do it to you. Like this. Okay. I had to do the booger, the finger booger nose. But it needs to be done. It needs to be done. And again, yeah, the defense has played great, but the Raiders offense is so capable this year. And their offensive line as a whole, the last game, which I liked what they did, playing Bars at left guard, because Simpson has been pushed back more than a bar stool. No, I'm not going to. Never mind. I'm not going to do that.
Finish it.
I'm not going to do that. But Bars at left guard has played better than Simpson. Illuminor, even though he had some questionable head cases at right guard, has played better than Cotton did. If you put Parham out there at one of those guards when James gets back, and I don't know if James is coming back, the regular center, but that is a decent offensive line in the making. Mumford played well at right tackle. So, hey, thanks again, Ed. Appreciate it. I'm thinking that the Raiders offense needs to figure out what is going on and get there together. Okay. And hopefully they'll do that. The defense has been playing well overall. They've been playing well. They need a wake-up call. And I'm hoping that it's this week, Rich, because I tell you what, I've gone to 3 games and maybe it's me. Because I might have to not go to any more games this year, because I would gladly give up all the games that I wanted to go to and see W's, and I mean that totally. I got DirecTV, I got the games on DVR. I would much rather have a Raiders win if I'm not there than to me to go out to see something putrid and spending a bunch of money to do it. And that's just me.
So I'm going to give away a bit of a cheat code to the Raiders in terms of one thing that they should be doing. Now, the question is, will they do it?
No.
And that is the Broncos' major weakness on the offensive line is our offensive center, as well as our right guard, although Miners is slated to come back, and he's going to be a rough guy to bully because he just doesn't get bullied. He's the one that does the bullying. So
and he's got dreads now. So
yeah, he does, and that's just he just looks more angry. Yeah, he just looks angry now, right?
He's a Rastaman.
Yeah, so he's he's just a very strong big dude. But where the real weakness is really at our offensive center, who struggles with both strength and speed, generally speaking. There, and he seems to have a weakness on the right side, just between the right guard and himself. So what I think you'd do well with is the stunts, where you end up with the your outside backer or DN, depending on how you play Crosby, spin him on the inside and around to come in towards the offensive center on defensive plays, leverage both size and speed and strength, frankly, because he's got kind of all three as a package. And he would probably be able to blow through the offensive center because he is that gifted as a pass rusher. Now, will the Raiders DC make those adjustments? I think that's yet to be seen because, there's been some struggles kind of generally speaking in games in terms of adjustments, especially early on. And then the question is, can those adjustments be made before halftime? Can the Raiders make those adjustments in real time quicker to give them better chances in the game? And, you never know.
Well, first off, before we go there, because I got on Mundungus, okay, I got who the hell can't spell hate? Oh, Clayton Heron. HAIT? Come on, man. I can't.
Have the grammar police tonight.
I can't abide by that.
You got nothing else to police, so.
If we're gonna go there, who does your hair? Okay,
myself.
Okay, then that's all I need to say. That's
from all day of stressful situations. I gotta.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's an excuse. When everybody has one. Okay. Anyway, what was I saying? Because he spelled hate wrong. I just totally blew. What
you're talking about that you hate bad grammar.
I do hate bad grammar. HAIT, horrific grammar. Okay. But I had to say. And by the way, BC is in here. Brian Callahan, good to see you here, brother, as well. See, I give props to where it is. But again, if Crosby does what you said, I did not that I did not hear what you said, Richie, and I think it will be there. If Crosby can do that, but I think the big thing with Patrick Graham is Patrick Graham has got to figure out that Chandler Jones has got paid bags as well and is not performing. And I'd much rather see Malcolm Kuntz and Tashawn Bauer get more playing time because those kids deserve it. And they're younger, they're quicker, and I think that they would be much more beneficial than somebody that just got paid not doing anything. I do have wenches do my hair and shine the sword. Yarg! Yep.
Oh boy, we're taking it to OnlyFans hours. Let's wrap it up.
Wild West after hours.
There you go.
Yeah.
Live on OnlyFans at 10:30.
So. I actually think that it's a really interesting, it's an interesting thing with regards to the fact that you think there's going to be some adjustments made. I guess the question ultimately is going to be,
will they?
You've seen solid adjustments made after halftime.
Thank you there, Miss Gibbons.
You can see my hair in her photo there too.
Oh, yeah, it's a good family photo there. There you go.
The flow I used to have.
So, Captain, ultimately the point is you've made great adjustments after halftime. And I think that if the Raiders are going to have any success this season, They need to start being able to make those adjustments
before
the half,
Yeah.
so that they can actually adjust better on the fly, as opposed to catching themselves at halftime and hoping they can come back.
Yeah, and it remains to be seen if they can figure that out.
Right.
They made an adjustment after halftime against the Cardinals too. They forgot that they were playing a football game.
Oh boy.
So I think I actually think this is going to be a rather interesting one, because
final score 12-10.
No, I actually think it's going to be a little bit of a higher scoring game than that, and I think it's going to come down to two things. One, if the Broncos defense can continue to keep the level of play that they have now, and on top of that, if the Broncos line continues to improve or can improve and is able to hold back the Raiders' rush, I think that the Broncos really do have a shot at putting up and kind of getting their offense a little bit back on track to what we thought we might see this season. I really do. The question is, can they?
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I'm not willing to put myself in either camp at the moment, because what I saw the last few games, we were improving and the game flow was there, but we still saw some awful throws. And if any one of those were to get picked and brought back, or anything along those lines, I mean, it could have been a completely different game against the Niners. We just got fortunate that they weren't caught by other teams when they were tipped up in the air.
Sure.
And so, I really do think that the Broncos need to play sounder football. I think that we need to leverage our tight ends more. I know this should come as a shock to no one. I want to see more Eric Saubert.
You're a tight end lover, period. I'm coming to grips with that.
He wants his bookend home and away jerseys, and if Saubert gets a third touchdown, old boy's going to have to do the alternate and the military version of the Saubert jersey.
Well,
you might get for 4 jerseys.
I didn't sign up for that.
You're adding stipulations to
Right,
this,
I didn't sign up for that.
Yeah, anybody that was that bashful deserves to get screwed out of 4 jerseys in total.
See, my whole point here is the Broncos have a pretty solid tight end room, and we saw what they could do.
That room? What's his name?
His name is Saubert for
Thank
one.
you. I wanted to hear it again.
But
Saubert.
No, but the point is, you saw Andrew Beck in the first game against the Seahawks make some pretty good plays, both at fullback and tight end. Saubert almost caught a touchdown in that game too, and you've just seen flashes from a pretty good tight end room that we have within the Broncos. And the reason why I like tight ends as a position group.
Wait. I like tight ends too, but we're not talking football.
No,
I knew that was gonna take a turn. I was waiting.
Yeah. I was waiting for that to jump in.
Shoo, just throw it up there.
Yeah. Just toss it up there and see if he can hit the ball, right?
Yeah.
But the reason why the tight end group that the Broncos have is good, and why I want to see them used more, is because they're the mismatches when it comes to safeties and linebackers. And
True.
when you have a team that is not known for a strong secondary, intentionally throwing just basic size mismatches is an easy game plan. Right? It's just an easy game plan. So, in my opinion, then that's where you can really kind of tip the scales in your favor. And I think that's what the Broncos need to start doing. And I think that this is a game where running the ball to control the clock, extending drives, continuing with the pass rush, and leveraging the big bodies to box out a secondary that has continued to not excel or overperform, I think is fair, is a way of winning this game outright for the Denver Broncos. But we are getting near the end of our time, guys. We've gone a little bit past what we normally do. This has just been a great show. We've really enjoyed having Coach back and everyone here.
That was why I went over. Y'all missed me. I get it.
Yeah, I wanted to thank everyone for joining us.
Unfortunately, you weren't here when I got to gloat about Thursday. But
yeah, I'm upset I missed that too. But you saw what I put on Twitter. They are who we thought they were.
Jack, I think I would rather have. That's tough. I think I'd rather have Crosby because he's healthy.
I figured you'd say that. Now, one
If you
quick
take
point,
injuries out of it, Joey Bosa, no question.
True.
Uh-oh.
So, Cap, let me ask this question real quick. Of course,
Yes, sir.
yeah,
Okay.
I went back. So didn't he say Rock Yassin and Hobbs is going to be out for this game?
No, I said
Questionable.
that Hobbs is going to be out. They think that Yassin will be back.
Okay.
And-
I was going to say, we got
Colton
two.
Miller. Is Colton Miller playing? He's questionable.
Colton Miller's under protocol as well, so we're getting banged up. Not quite as bad as the Garglers, but we're getting.
Got to throw that in at least once this week. Yeah. At least once a week.
Say, you got it at the tail end of the show.
Yeah, he snuck it in, did he? Yeah.
Yeah, I stuck it in at the tail end. Come on, man, you're giving me softballs here. There you go, Mom. Stop watching, Mom.
Ma, the meatloaf. Ma, the
I don't know what
meatloaf.
she's doing.
But yeah, but they're like I said, Merrick is injured. I think they said Yassin might play. I think that, like I said, Renfro's out. Miller's under concussion protocol. So you got guys that are hurt at the wrong time against a Broncos team that is coming in and playing rather well.
Indeed. All right, Richard, take us out.
Oh, crap! Gargling champagne.
Hey, you got to give him this, though. He's at least a true fan.
Brian, that's true. That's
Indeed.
True.
And my answer to that is I would prefer Crosby over Bosa because Crosby typically doesn't get hurt and Bosa always does. And on that note, we're going to go ahead and end the show, guys. We're going to be back next Wednesday with our recap. Next week, Captain is going to have NFL Nation Live directly after the show. No?
Nope. Next week, and that's why I wanted to say it. When NFL Nation Live, normally I'd be out of here about an hour ago. Wow, that's a long show.
Yeah.
But we had to do NFL Nation Live last night because Ref is going to be going to Wisconsin, and next week is a bye week, so I will have an extended time again next week. It'll be the following week that I will have to go back. Remember, though, NFL Nation Live, please make sure you head on over and watch it on Ref Guru's channel or come on over to my channel. No skin off my nose. I just don't want you to miss a really good show between Ref Guru, Violator, and some old pirate that makes
smelly pirate.
Smell it,
There you go.
Pirate.
There you go.
But hey, it's just me being me, man. And like I said, I love the guys here. And again, thanks for the extended time. But not this next Wednesday, but the weekend after that. Please make sure you watch NFL Nation Live. We do the lead-in with the wonderful Wild Wild West, and then we go right to that.
With that in mind, guys, we're going to continue the 3-point stance again to give you additional takes on what our opponents need to do to beat our teams for the AFC West. And until next week, where the West Side is the best side, this is the Wild Wild West podcast. We'll see you next Wednesday. Peace.
Yeah!